Started this in. So Scott Deemer is the owner and president of Outdoor Craftsmen. John Reffel is the president of JLS Landscape. And then Tom Tolkacz is the CEO of Swingle Lawn, and Landscape Care. Rich Leeman is the president of Landscape Technology Group, and also Garden Center of Eagle. There we go. Okay. So anyway, get two hats. So we'll kind of start at this end, and Scott, I'll start with you a little bit. And what I've done is kind of try to figure kind of an overall concept for each of these guys to kind of address, but they'll all be able to kind of jump in as we go here. But so you started in Chicago, right? It's the big city. Came here, worked for a DB firm for a while here, and then started your own gig. So I guess I'm kind of curious. I mean, how did you see that from where you started to where you are now? Did you have a vision of that? Was there some concept you said, hey, here's where I'm going to be at some point? Or was this just you jumped on the roller coaster and it kept going? How did you find it?
In all honesty, my getting into this industry was not something that was my first passion by any stretch of the imagination. I started out as a fine artist, and that was definitely the direction that I was headed. In college, I had my first major in geology. I went to Southern Illinois, and that was in the 70s when the oil crisis was in there, and I was just like, well, I don't want to go to the Middle East to maybe find a job, and art was my minor that switched to my major, and I took that path. And then after getting out of school, I really wasn't sure where that career path was going to lead me. And I got involved with a fledgling company in the Chicago area, Scott Byron and Company, and was employee number 4. Was there for 17 years and had a great mentor in the owner of that business who had the vision of bringing up his staff from the inside up and putting them through any number of training opportunities that could be possible. And I was with that company for 17 years and went from a startup little business to a $25 million a year company when I left 17 years later. And it was a great learning experience for me. And it wasn't something that I truly envisioned myself being a business owner, but I was brought to Colorado to run a company that was a design-build firm in Boulder, and threw away all my security that I had with this long-term relationship with lots of vacation time and full benefits, and as a leap of faith, I said I want to do more with my life, my career. And it was another great learning experience for me to take a known product that I had in the landscape industry from the Chicago area, transitioning into a wild and crazy, very aesthetic presentation that was offline from everything that I knew about. You know, I was working off of watercolor sketches sometimes when I moved to Boulder, and it was just like, whoa, you know, what's this all about? But it was something where it made me become a better organized general manager of that company, where there had been really no structure at all, and we were very successful in that business venture. And it gave me the confidence then to not take on the opportunity that was intended of taking over ownership of that business and starting my own business in 2004. So it was definitely for me a needed learning experience for the first 20 years of my career, to work under the tutelage of people who, like many of you, are needing and wanting to know more about how to make this work right. When the time was right for me, I took on the risk of starting my own business, because owning your own business is a large risk endeavor for most of us from a financial point of view, especially for a guy like me who had always been very appreciative of the bi-weekly paycheck that I got for being in the business for 20 years and now being accountable and responsible for other people's lives was a big deal for me, in a nutshell.
So let me dig into a couple of things you mentioned. You mentioned you developed confidence to go do something, and you mentioned the idea of accountability. So when you started looking to start your own gig, right, what was your plan then? I mean, you'd seen the map, right? You'd seen something go from nothing to 25 million. You'd seen something that was Mark, I think, right? That's where you were in Boulder. You saw that company grow. So were you able to take some of that stuff you learned and just create your own map then? Start your own thing?
You know, yes, most definitely. You know, part of the reasoning that I did not take the opportunity to buy into the ownership of MARPA was that there was a different enough vision of what I believed to be the kind of business model that I was able to work toward. I would have been able to get 49% ownership at number 51 to where I would have say in how things were fully going to be done. The Chicago company that I was with was a very service-oriented organization. MARPA was a very visionary, deliberate, aesthetic presentation, and not necessarily fulfilling our clients' expectations at the level that I was accustomed. And for me, service was the key point to my being able to be successful.
So you saw a contrast.
I saw enough of a contrast that it was a reason to not invest.
Okay, so another thing you mentioned was the idea of mentoring. You had some good mentors. Rich, pass that thing down to Rich. I think Rich has some pretty good perspective. You had a couple of guys you worked for early on that gave you some pioneers.
I worked with Richard Matthews up in Vail. He had the garden center in Eagleville for quite a while. He allowed me to be his right-hand man for many a year, but also taught me the value of estimating the business and the client contacts and the long-term relationships that he had. He was up there at the very founding of it. And then I worked with him for 8 years and went to work with Phil Hendrick at Grizzly Landscape in Aspen. And Phil had a very neat company philosophy. Too, it was a very open book. You ask the questions, he'll tell you the answers. You want to know where the money is, he'll let you know where the money is, and such there. So it was real nice. I try to continue that philosophy with my company. Unfortunately, that ownership had a 51% owner and a 49% owner, and they decided on May 1st, about 98, to dissolve the company, and it left me unemployed. And so I was able to then talk to some of my friends and family, and they encouraged me to start my own company back then.
Okay. So you mentioned the idea of an open book approach. I'm just kind of curious, how many people in here share your financials with all your employees? Yeah. There's a great hesitancy, I think, in the industry to do that. Tom, talk about that a little bit. Give a little background on you as well, Mike, as you get started.
Let's see, I think I've been in the green industry most of my life in one fashion or another.
But you're young.
Yeah, I'm young. Started out I went to school at University of Wisconsin-Madison, go Badgers and Packers. So I'm a Broncos fan today. Things are sort of not going our way. I started out in the business school, even though my family was really, I was solid blue collar, factory town. But I've been essentially selling Christmas cards door to door to buy my first bike when I was like 7 years old. And so I knew that if I wanted to get ahead and get somewhere in life, it really was up to me. And went to school at Madison, went into the business school, and I didn't align with anybody in that school. And I was really tough. So I ultimately moved into wildlife management, so there is a reason I'm in the outdoors all the time. And there weren't many jobs in that. Moved into forestry and ended up with a forestry and soil science degree, and came out to Colorado on an internship. I did 4 internships for 12 credits when I was in college. I have a strong belief in internship programs and actually working. I think when it comes around to it, and you talk about the open book management, the guru of open book management, if you're not a big reader, I encourage everybody to be a big reader, is Jack Stack. Anybody read Jack Stack? Come on, somebody has. Good job, Kristen, thanks. If you really want to understand open book management, get Jack Stack's book. Talks about the foundation and basis of it is a factory environment in the Midwest and opening up your income statement to the level that is necessary to everybody who's involved in the organization and letting them build their incentive plans around the knowledge that you share with them. And, ever since I came to Swingle 26, 27 years ago now, Swingle's been an open book management company. Of course, what that means to everybody on the front lines is what? There's more than one set of books, right? You're only showing us the one you want. That was sort of what we were taught. But the reality of it was there was one set of books, and that was the set of books that we were being shared with. So we definitely believe in that. We believe in Jack Stack's system and think it's important. And the outcome for us is having people build their own incentive programs that they set their targets for, and they hold themselves accountable so you don't have to. And I think that's a big outcome of that. The other one that's big there, and I think its foundation is out of Boulder, is the lemonade stand book, which is a really, really simple exercise to take all of your frontline people through, and it's how do you make money at a lemonade stand. And those are two really good exercises that I think apply to open book management.
So John, let's go back just for a second here to the, well, actually you can talk about two things. So your mentor was your dad? Really? Yes. Yeah. And so talk about that a little bit, because that's a different environment. So guys like this are challenged. He's the mentor, right, with his kids. Talk about that a little bit, and then maybe get into some of this. It's a different deal when you have employees. It's a different deal when your employees are your family. And now you start talking about an open book at a whole different level. How does all that work? So give them a little history on yourself, and then talk about those two things.
I grew up through junior high and senior high working irrigation crews for a local company here in Denver. My dad started his company in '75, which I was employee number one at that time, and for a long time I was the only employee. We worked together doing residential irrigation. From there, he mentored me just to work hard. That was all he knew. He wasn't the manager. He wasn't the finance guy. He knew very little about business, but he knew how to work on it. Built the business up about '85. The crunch and the recession hit us. We dropped back. At that point, we were up to probably 15 employees. We dropped back to, I think, 3 employees in a matter of about 4 months, something like that. Built it up from there. Then we took on anything we could do, landscape, maintenance, still continued the irrigation. Excuse me. Thank you. About '87, his health took a turn, and so he had to retire. From there, I took the company over. Didn't have much management experience, but started going to school nights and learning that way. Now we have our 2 sons in the business. My wife has also come into the business in the last 10 years.
We won't ask any questions about that.
Good. Now we are a commercial landscape maintenance and snow removal contractor. Snow is probably 62% of our business now. It's slowly taking it over, and we see that taking over more. At some point, we could possibly be a snow-only contractor in this market.
That's a good thing to do. Okay. So then we ask this. Your dad came from a place which was work ethic, right? So you've trained yourself maybe to a different level as a manager. So what are you doing with the boys?
Getting them training anywhere we can. I find by sending them out different events around the country, different companies around the country, has been key for their growth. When they're around other people their age and they're talking business, they realize the professionalism that's out there, and it motivates them to seek more information.
Okay.